Episode 4. Announcer. Conversations at midnight. The spot lights the two cells with a partition between. Ollie kneels praying by his bunk. Butch lounges, covertly smoking, on a bench along the wall. The others sit on their bunks. Ollie, in an audible whisper, "O Lord, the protector and preservation of all, remember me. Remember his wife, Susie, and his 6 children, Rachel, Rebecca, Solomon, Moses, Ecclesiastics, and Deuteronomy Jackson. You look out for them while I was in jail. And I get out for the cold weather sets in because Susie's going to have another baby. Lord, and she can't get around gathering kindling wood. God bless my old woman and daddy and President Roosevelt and the WPA in Jesus Christ's name. Amen." He rises stiffly. Butch, grinning. "Hey, Ollie, you better have him reverse the charges on that one." Ollie, "It don't cost nothing." Butch, "It ain't worth nothing." Ollie, "The Lord remembers who remembers him." Butch, "Hoss shit." Ollie sits dejectedly on the edge of his bunk. There are derisive whistles and bird calls in the hall as Jim enters. Jim, "What's the matter, Ollie?" Ollie, jerking his thumb at Butch's cell. "He says there ain't no God." Jim, "How's he know?" Ollie, That's what I say." Jim removes his shirt and swabs sweat off his face and chest with it, then pitches it into the corner. He picks up a naked art magazine and fans himself with it. Ollie, "You think they is, don't you, Jim?" Jim, "Somebody upstairs?" "I don't know. I guess I'm what they call an agnostic." Ollie, "You mean Episcopalian?" Jim, "Yeah. Rub my back for me, Ollie. I'm tired." Ollie, "All right. Liniment or bacon grease?" Jim, "Give me the liniment." Butch, "Haven't you started seeing him yet, Canary?" Jim, as Ollie starts to rub, "God, it burns good." Butch, "Them little blue devils, they're the first symptom." Jim, "It makes the air feel cool." Butch, "They crawl in through the bars and sit on the end of your bunk making faces at you." Jim, "Rub harder on the left shoulder." Butch, "You better start sleeping with one eye open, Canary. Can you do that?" Jim, "Never tried it, Butch." That's good." Butch, "Well, you better, because if they catch you off guard, Canary, they'll climb down your throat and tie knots in your gizzard." He laughs delightedly at the prospect. Jim, "That's good. That's swell." Ollie, "How'd you get them purple scars, Jim?" Jim, "From Dr. Jones." Ollie, "Who's Dr. Jones?" Butch, "Dr. Jones is the guy that gave Canary his singing lessons. Remember when I found out that you'd grown feathers?" Jim to Ollie, "That's enough, thanks." He produces cigarettes. "Have one?" Ollie, "Thanks, Jim." Butch, "It's lucky for you that I was interrupted, or you'd be reading books with your fingers instead of your eyes. It's listed on the record as unfinished business, to be took care of at some future date. I figure that every dog has his day, and mine's coming pretty soon now." Ollie, "Don't pay him no mind." Jim, "Nah, there's a wall between him and me." Butch, "You bet there is, or you'd be a dead canary. There'd be yellow feathers floating all over Halsey." Jim, exhaling smoke as he speaks, a la Jules Garfield. "There's a wall like that around every man in here and outside of here, Ollie." Ollie, "Outside? Naw." Jim, "Sure there is. Every man livin' is walking around in a cage. He carries it with him wherever he goes and don't let it go till he's dead. Then the walls come to pieces and he stops being lonesome." Butch grins delightedly and nudges Joe. He describes a circle with his finger and points at Jim's cell. They both crouch, grinning, listening on the bench by the wall. 'Cause he's part of something bigger than him. Ollie. Bigger than him? Jim. Yes. Ollie. What's Jim? Blowing an enormous smoke ring and piercing it with his finger. The universe. Butch erupts in a hoarse, derisive laughter. Jim, ignoring Butch's outburst. But sometimes, I think, Ollie, a guy don't have to wait till he's dead to get outside of his cage. Ollie. You mean he should bump himself off? Jim. No. A guy can use his brain two ways. He can make it a wall to shut him in from the world, or a great big door to let him out. He continues musingly. Intellectual emancipation. Ollie. Huh? Butch gives a long whistle. Ollie. What's that? Jim. Couple of words I came across in a book. Ollie. Sounds like big words. Jim. They are big words. So big that the world hangs on them. They can tell us what to read, what to say, what to do. But they can't tell us what to think. And as long as man can think as he pleases, he's never exactly locked up anywhere. He can think himself outside of all their walls and boundaries and make the world his place to live in. It's a swell feeling, Ollie, when you've done that. It's like being alone on top of a mountain at night with nothing around you but stars. Only you're not alone, though. Because you know that you're part of everything living and everything living is a part of you. Then you get an idea of what God is. Not Mr. Santa Claus, Ollie, dropping answers to prayers down chimneys. Ollie. Nah? Jim. No, not that. But something big and terrible as night is, and yet... Ollie. Huh? Jim. And yet as soft as a woman. You see what I mean? Butch. I see what you mean. It's a kind of balmy feeling. Butch and Joe laugh. Jim looks resentfully at Wall. Jim. You guys don't get what I'm talking about. Ollie, musingly. No, but I do. Thickens like praying, except that praying, you feel like you've got someone on the other end of the line. Jim, smiling. Yeah. The spot fades on Jim's cell and focuses on Butch's. Queen. Be quiet, you all. I'm sick. I need my sleep. He mutters to himself. A searchlight from River shines on the window. Joe. Where's the light from? Butch at the window. Another boatload of goddamn jitterbugs. They're throwing the glims on us. What do you think this is, the municipal zoo or something? Go to hell, you some bitches, you lousy. Schultz. Rapping at the bars with a stick. After lights in there. Butch. Someday it's gonna be permanently after lights for that old screw. Joe, twisting on bed. Butch. Bellyache? Joe. Yeah. From them stinking meatballs. By God, I'm gonna quit eating if they don't start putting in more digestible food. Butch, reflectively. Quit eating, huh? I think you got something there. Joe. Oh, Christ. He draws his knees up to his chin. Butch. You ever heard of a hunger strike, Joe? Joe. Butch. Sometimes it works. Gets in the papers. Starts investigations. They get better food. Joe. Ooh. We'd get Klondike. Butch. Klondike won't hold 3,500 men. Joe. No, but Hall C would go first on account of our reputation. Butch. Okay. We'll beat Klondike. Joe. You talk too big sometimes. You ever been in Klondike? Butch. Yeah, once. Joe, what's it like? Butch, it's a little suburb of hell. Joe, that's what I thought. Butch, they got radiators all around the walls and there ain't no windows. Joe, Christ almighty. Butch, steam hisses out of the valves like this. He imitates the sound till it gets so thick you can't see nothing around you. It's like breathing fire in your lungs. The floor is so hot you can't stand on it, but there's no place else to stand. Joe, how do you live? Butch, there's an air hole about this size at the bottom of the wall, but when there's a bunch in Klondike, they get panicky and fight over the air hole, and the ones that ain't strong don't make it. Joe, it kills them? Butch, sure, unless the boss takes them out. And when you beat Klondike, you beat everything they've got to offer in here. It's their ace of spades. Queen, rising sleepily on his bunk. What's that about Klondike, Butch? Joe, nothing. He's talking in his sleep. Queen, I dreamed about Klondike one night. Joe, did ya? Queen, sure. That was the night I woke up screaming. Remember? Joe, sure. I remember. Oh, Jesus. He springs out of bed and crouches on the floor, clasping his stomach. Blackout. Episode 5. Announcer. Band music. Theme up. Tchaikovsky. 1812 Overture, second theme. Fade. A spot comes up on the office. Jim is settled comfortably in a chair by the window, writing. Eva enters. Eva, brightly. Good morning. Jim, hi. Eva, removing her hat, etc. I believe you spend more time here than the boss does. Jim, I like it here, especially when I'm alone. Eva, oh, well, excuse my intrusion. Jim, I don't mean you. You don't bother me. His immediate tension at her entrance belies this. Eva, thanks. Jim, watching her as she removes the cover from the machine. As a matter of fact, it's a rare and enviable privilege for a Connie to get close to a member of the opposite sex. Eva, really? Jim, yes, really and truly. I have to blink my eyes a couple of times to be sure you're not just one of them. Visual and auditory hallucinations that some fellows develop in stir. Eva, inserting a form sheet in the typewriter. Wasn't there a girl working here before me? Jim. There was, but she wasn't nearly such a strain upon one's credulity. Eva. How do you mean? Jim. She was sort of a cow. Eva. Oh. Jim. Wayland's wife's second cousin. But he's a remarkable man. Eva, whose typing obscured the last phrase. He is or she is? Jim. They both were. He laughs. Now you know why I'm called the canary. I talk too much. Eva. No. In what way? Jim, thumbing toward the inner room. He had her in there the first week. Eva. What's in there? Jim. He goes in there to relax after ground inspection. She would go in there with him. She died of an operation, and Wayland brought his wife a mink coat. Wayland bought his wife a mink coat. How do you like your new job? Eva. Well, not so good now. Jim, there's some features of life on the grounds that aren't mentioned in the Sunday supplement. Eva. Yes. I didn't sleep last night. Jim. No. Eva. From thinking about that boy's mother. Jim. You'll get used to things like that. Eva. I don't want to get used to them. Jim. Why don't you quit then? Eva. Say, you don't know much about the unemployment situation. Jim. No, I got here before the Depression. Eva, you're lucky. Jim, think so? Eva, there was a case in the paper where a man busted a plate glass window so he could go to jail and get something to eat. Jim, I bet he regretted it afterwards, especially if he came here. Eva, I don't know, the sample menu's okay. Jim, huh? We spill that stuff on everybody who comes in the office to cover up what's actually going on. Eva, removing the form sheet. What's that? Jim, starvation. Eva, you're crazy. Jim, sure I am. Crazy as a bed bug. But I've still got sense enough to recognize beans and hamburger and spaghetti when I see them 6 or 7 times a week in slightly variegated combinations. You wonder why we make such a fuss about eating? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because eating's all we got. We got nothing else. No women to sleep with, no hammers, no shovels, no papers to write on, no automobiles, no golf. Nothing to do but eat. So eating's important to us. And when they make that so darned monotonous that you feel like puking at the sight of it, then they're putting that match to a keg of powder. He lights a cigarette. Ask me, what is a pyrotechnical display? Eva, I think I know. Jim, you'll know better if you stick around. We're going to have the loveliest 4th of July you ever laid eyes on. Only it's going to come maybe in the middle of August. You see, I've got my ear to the ground, in here and in Hall C. This place, lady, is the practical equivalent of Mount Vesuvius. Maybe 100 years from now, little woolly white lambs will be grazing peacefully on the slopes of an extinct volcano. But down at the bottom, tourist guides will be pointing out the bones of people who didn't get out of Pompeii. Eva, too bad you won't be one of the guides. You have good speeches. Jim, okay, be funny about it. The sound of a brass band playing a martial air in the assembly hall is heard. Eva, her face brightening. Band music. Jim, yes, they're practicing for the commissioner's banquet. Eva, rising. Sounds very gay. Jim, uh-huh. If you believed in brass bands, you'd think the millennium was going to arrive at exactly 6 a.m. tomorrow. Eva, facing him with desperate gaiety. Why not? Maybe it will. A brass band can sell me anything, Jim. Jim, can it sell you this? He catches her against him in a hard, impulsive embrace. Eva, breaking away. Yes, it could even sell me that. Then she laughs. But not in the warden's office. She goes quickly back to her typing. Jim stands motionless, looking at her back. His arms raise slowly, the hands clench into fists. They vibrate, outstretched with a terrific intensity, then slowly fall to his sides. Eva whistles gaily to the band music. Dim out. Episode 6. Announcer. Mr. Olympics. A spot comes up on the cell. Men have just returned from supper. Joe. Did you eat yours? Butch. Eat that stuff? Nah, it made me sick to look at it. Joe. Spaghetti 4 times a week. Butch. That's nuttin'. I used to work in a spaghetti factory. Queen. Really? Butch. Yeah. I remember one time the spaghetti machines got out of control. We couldn't stop them. The whole place was full of spaghetti. It was spaghetti everywhere, oozing out of the floor and the walls and the ceiling. Spaghetti. Spaghetti blocking up the windows and doors. A big suffocating mass of spaghetti. Queen. Oh, please. Butch. So I says to the foreman, for Christ's sakes, how are we going to get out of this place with all this spaghetti slopping around everywhere? And the boss says, boys, there's only one way to get out of here now. How's that? I ask him. Here, he says, and he hands me a big knife and fork. You gotta eat your way out. Queen. Oh, for the love of Nostradamus. The steel doors clang. Voice. Hello, new boy. Other greetings are given. Butch. They're bringing a new boy in. Schultz stops in front of the cell with Swifty. Schultz. Here's your boudoir, sonny. Swifty. Here? Schultz. Yeah, here. He shoves him roughly in and slams the door. Swifty. What did he do that for? Shove me. I was going in, wasn't I? Joe. Sure you was going in. He just wanted to help you. Swifty. I don't like being pushed around like that. Joe. I'd complain to the governor. Swifty. Pausing as he looks about. I've got an appeal coming before the governor. Joe. Have you now? Swifty. Yes, I didn't get a fair trial. I was railroaded up here. My lawyer said so. Joe. Your lawyer said so. Swifty. Yes, he said. Hey, do we all stay in here together like this? Jeez, it's too small. Joe. What's that your lawyer said? Swifty. He said, what's that, a cockroach? Gosh, I don't like being cooped up like this. Joe. What did your lawyer say? Swifty. He said for me to sit tight. He'd have me out of here in 2 weeks, a month at the most. Joe. A month at the most? What do you think of that, Butch? Butch. I think it's a lot of what they use shovels to clean off the stable floor. He rises. That's your new bunk, new boy. Get up there and listen to what I tell you. Go on. Swifty. Quit shoving. Butch. Huh? Swifty. I told you I don't like being pushed around. Butch exhibiting his fists. When you talk back to me, you're talking back to this. Now get up there and pay attention to what I say. Swifty. Why should I take orders from you? You're not one of the officials around here. Butch. Ain't I? Swifty. No. Butch. Listen, buddy. In Spain, it's Mussolini. Joe. You mean Italy, it's Mussolini. Butch. I mean wherever there's wops. And in Germany, it's that monkey with a trick mustache. But in here, it's Butch O'Fallon. And Butch O'Fallon is me. So now that we've been properly introduced, I would like to repeat my polite invitation to remove your butt from my bunk and get up in your own. Butch jerks Swifty up by the collar and hoists him by the seat of his pants to the upper bunk. What's your name? Swifty. Jeremy Trout. Butch. This your first stretch? Swifty. Yes, what of it? Butch. What's your rap? Swifty. I was indicted for stealing money. Butch. What from? Swifty. Cash register in a chain store. I was a cashier. But I didn't do it. I was framed by a couple of clerks. Butch. I believe you. You don't look like you have gumption enough to crack a till. How much you got? Swifty. On me? Nothing. They even took my cigarettes. Butch. I mean your stretch. How long? Swifty. Eggleston gave me 5 years. But my lawyer says, Butch, you'll do 5 years. Swifty. In here? Well, I'd go crazy locked in here for that long. Butch. Pocket your marbles. Swifty. I feel sick. The air in here is no good. Butch. No? Swifty. It smells. It's making me sick at the stomach. Butch. There's the slop bucket. Swifty. No. Butch. It ain't been emptied yet. That's your job. The new man always empties. Swifty. No. He sinks into his bunk. 5 years? I couldn't stand being cooped up that long. I gotta have space around me. I get restless. That's why I didn't like working in the chain store. Kept me behind a counter all day. Felt like I was tied up there. At high school, I was a runner. Butch. A runner, huh? Queen. That's what I said to myself. He looks athletic. Swifty. Yes. I held the 220 state record for 3 years. Butch, fancy that. Swifty. I like anything that's moving, that don't stay put. It's not an ordinary thing with me, it's kind of an obsession. I like to kill distance. See a straight track. Get to the other end of it first before anything else. That's what I was made for. Running. Look at my legs. Joe. Pips, huh? Swifty. That's from training. If this hadn't happened, I'd be on my way to the Olympics right now. I could still have a chance at the New York eliminations if my lawyer can spring me before the 15th. He flexes his legs. But look at that. Getting loose already. If I could get permission to run around the yard a few times, say before breakfast or supper, why, I could keep in pretty good shape even in here. Even if I had to stay in here a year. That way I could keep in condition. Joe. He'll go like Sailor Jack. Butch. Pocket your marbles. Buddy, I ain't sentimental, but I feel sorry for you. Swifty. Why? Don't you think he'll let me? Butch. No. Swifty. Why not? Butch. Because you're a con. Swifty. But a con's a human being. He's got to be treated like one. Butch. A con ain't a human being. A con's a con. The lights fade on the others and concentrate on Butch. He's stuck in here, and the world's forgot him. As far as the world is concerned, he don't exist anymore. What happens to him in here, them people outside don't know. They don't care. He is entrusted to the care of the state. The state? Hell. The state turns him over to a guy called a warden and a bunch of other guys called guards. Who are they? Men who like to boss other men? Maybe they could have been truck drivers or street cleaners or circus clowns. But they didn't want to be none of them. Why? Because they've got a natural instinct for swinging a shillelagh. They like to crack heads, make sausage out of human flesh. And so they get to be guards. That sounds like gods. Which ain't so much a coincidence either. Because the only difference between guards and gods is that guards has an R in it, and the R stands for rat. That's what a guard is, according to my definition. A rat who thinks that he's a god. You better not forget that. Because, Sonny, you're not in high school no more. You ain't in the chain store, you're not at the Olympics. That's part 1 of your education. Part 2 is stay away from stool pigeons. Hey, Canary. He ain't in yet, but we got a little songbird in the next cage who sings real sweetly sometimes for the boss. So don't be buddies with him. Give him a cigarette, Joe. Joe. Here, Mr. Olympics. Butch. Keep it covered. How's your stomach now? Swifty. Some better. Butch. Hungry? Swifty. No. Butch. That's good. Because we might quit eating. Queen. Quit eating? Butch. Yep. I've been thinking over what we talked about last night, Joe, and I'm just about sold on it. Joe. I'm still on the fence about that. Butch. There ain't any fence to be on, Joe. When I say hunger strike in here, it's going to be a hunger strike. Queen. Hunger strike? Swifty. What's that? Butch. Pocket your marbles. The canary's coming to roost. Derisive whistles are heard in the hall. Help me off with the shoes, Queenie. That's right. Here, hang up my shirt. Joe? Joe. What the hell? Butch. You fold my pants up nice and lay 'em over the chair. Hello, Moon. He stands in a shaft of through the barred window. Joe. You're going like Sailor Jack saying hello to the moon. Butch. She's big and yellow tonight. You know, me and God have got something in common, Joe. Joe. Yeah? What's that? Butch. A weakness for blondes. Blackout. Episode 7. Announcer. A rubber duck for the baby. A spot comes up on the warden's office. The boss is seated at his desk inflating a rubber duck. Warden. To Eva, who lays papers on his desk. Look at this. Eva. Yes. Warden. It's a rubber duck for the baby. Eva. I didn't know you had one. Warden. You bet I got one. Cutest little baby doll you ever set eyes on. Eva. Boy or girl? Warden. Girl. Wouldn't have nothing else. Will she be tickled when she sees this? Eva starts to leave. Wait. I'm going to get her on the phone now. You want to hear this, Eva? He dials. Hello, Mama. How's Trix? Yeah? Well, put the baby on, will ya? To Eva. Now listen to this. Puttykins, Popsy just wanted to know if oo was being a good little girl. Ooh are? That's good. Popsy got something for food, little girls. No, not a stick candies. Ooh see when Popsy gets home. Is ooh well. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. He hangs up with a chuckle. Cute's the dickens. Looks just like Shirley Temple, don't she, though? He shows a picture to Eva. Eva. Yes, there's a resemblance. Jim enters. Warden heartily. Hello, Jimmy boy, what's new? Jim. Nothing new. Just the same old complaints about food. Only they're getting louder all the time, boss. Warden. What do they want? Caviar? Cream puffs? Charlotte Russes? Do they want us to have printed menus so they can order their meals a la carte? Stick these medical reports in the file case, Eva. Jim. If you look those reports over, you'll see there was 7 cases of ptomaine poisoning after the Wednesday night supper. Those meatballs were worse on the stomach than they were on the nose. Warden. What do you mean? They weren't good? Jim. I think they were meant for the buzzards out at the zoo. Got mixed up at the market or something and came over here by mistake. Warden. Look here, Jim. You're talking too uppity. Showing off for Miss Crane. I guess that's it? Jim. No, sir. If I didn't give you my honest opinion, what good would I be? Warden. Slowly studying Jim's face. Okay. Yeah, you're a good boy, Jim. Jim. Thanks. Warden, leaning back. I like you, Jim. Why? Because you got a face that looks like it was cut out of rock. Turn sideways, Jim. Eva? Eva at the files. Yes, sir? Warden. Ever seen a cleaner cut profile than that? Like it was carved in stone, huh? Them jaws. The nose. The mouth. I tried to break that when Jim first come in here. Never did. It stayed like it is. Stone face. Never got it to change, not even when I give him 50 stripes with a rubber hose every morning for 14 days. Remember that, Jim? Jim, his face barely tightening. Yes, sir. Warden. When I seen I couldn't break him, I said to myself, hey, Bert, here's a man you could use. So I did. Jim's a trusty now, a stool pigeon. Canary Jim, that's what the other cons all call him. Ain't that so, Jim? Jim, yes, sir. Warden, keeps me posted on conditions among the men. He don't come gumshoeing, whispering like the other stool pigeons I got in here. He comes straight out and says what he thinks. That's what makes him valuable to me. But the men don't like him. They hate your guts, don't they, Jim? Jim. Yes, sir. He speaks in almost a whisper. Warden. Jim's on my side, all right. I couldn't break him, so I made him useful. Take off your shirt, Jim. Show Eva your back. Jim. Yes, sir. He obeys with curious machine-like precision. Diagonally across his shoulder down to the waist are long scars which 10 years could not obliterate. Warden. See them scars, Eva? He got them 10 years ago. Pretty sight he was then, raw meat. The skin hung down from his back like pieces of red tissue paper. The flesh was all pulpy, beat up. The blood squirted out like juice from a ripe tomato every time I brung the whip down on him. Had enough, Jim? Ready to go back to that embossing machine? No, says Jim, not till it's fixed. He defied me like that for 14 days. I seen I'd either have to kill him or I'd have to admit that he had me licked. I says to him, Jim, you win. You don't go back to that embossing machine. You stay right here in the office and work for me. Because you're a man that's made out of stuff that I like. Stone face. Huh, Jim? Jim. Yes, sir. The papers have already slipped from Eva's hands. She utters a slight breathless cry and grips the edge of the desk. Warden. Thunderation, what's wrong? Jim. I think she's fainting. He catches Eva. Warden. Let go of that girl, get your shirt on, and get out. Tell the boys in Hall C I'm tired of complaints about food. Well, young lady? Eva. I'm all right now. Warden. All right, I've got her. Get your shirt back on, Jim. I want you to have a little talk with Butch O'Fallon tonight. Tell him I'm tired of complaints in Hall C, and if he wants trouble, I'm the baby that can dish it out. Go on, get on out. Jim. Yes, sir. He exits slowly. Warden to Eva, who has sunk in her chair. Well, young lady? Eva. I'm all right now. Warden. Sorry, I didn't mean to make it that strong. Jim's a good boy, but it didn't hurt to remind him once in a while of his old friend, Dr. Jones. Eva averts her face. You think I'm brutal, don't you? You gotta realize the position I'm in. I got 3,500 men here. Men that would knife their own mothers for the price of a beer. It takes a mighty firm hand. Yes, sirree. He picks up the rubber duck and inflates it some more. Cute, huh? She'll make a fuss over this. Dim out. Episode 8. Announcer. Explosion. The spot comes up on the cell. We should feel a definite increase of tension over the preceding cell scenes. Butch paces restlessly. The others sit sullenly on their bunks. The Queen with an old movie magazine, Swifty anxiously flexing his legs. Joe, entering from the hall and removing the jacket. Save your shoe leather. Butch, what for? Joe, you might want to eat it tonight instead of cold beans. Butch, beans, huh? Swifty with a letter. It's from my lawyer. Queen, what's he say, honey? Swifty, he says for me to sit tight. Queen, goodness, my nails are in awful condition. Swifty, sit tight? What does he think I've been doing since I got here? Sit tight. Sit tight. Don't he know I've got to be moving around? Butch, take it easy, Mr. Olympics. Who told you cold beans? Joe, boy that works in the kitchen. Swifty, I don't trust that lawyer. This time he says 6 months. Queen, I don't trust no man, honey. No further than I could kick Grant's tomb with a fractured toe. He giggles. Butch, he ought to know. Swifty, my lawyer? Butch, your lawyer. Nah, the kitchen boy. Joe, maybe our friend the canary forgot to spill. Butch, he'd never forget to spill anything. Joe, then maybe the boss don't care for how we feel about cold beans for supper. Butch, he wants to call our hand. Joe, sure. He's got an ace in the hole. Klondike. Butch, we got one too. Joe, hunger strike? Butch, you named it, brother. Joe, 2 guys can't hold the ace of spades. Butch, once I sat in a game where that was the situation. Joe, How did you solve it? Butch, producing his razor. With this. Joe, you better quit flashing that thing. Butch, everybody knows I got tough whiskers. He laughs and replaces razor in his belt. Fortune's always hiding. I looked everywhere. Bird calls are heard from the hall. Here it comes. It's the canary. He gives a shrill whistle. Hello, canary. How's them solo flights you been making? You know, out there on the mountain tops with nothing around Joe but the stars. He and Joe laughs. Ollie from next cell. Don't pay him no mind, Jim. Jim. Never mind about that. I got yeah. Butch. Tell us about Goldilocks and the bears. Joe. I like Goody Two Shoes. Jim. Come outside for a minute. Butch. You want to fight? Jim. No, I want to talk. Butch. You always want to talk. That's your trouble. If you got something to spill, come in here. Jim. I know what happened last time I got in a cage with you, Butch. Butch. I'm glad I made that good an impression. Jim. Are you coming out? Butch. Nah. Are you coming in? Jim. Yeah, I will. Soon as they douse the glims. Queen. Better not, honey. Butch has got tough whiskers. Jim. Yeah, I know what he cuts 'em with. Butch. Why don't you spill it then? Jim. I never deliberately ratted on nobody, Butch. A whistle sounds. The lights dim. Okay, I'm coming in now. He unlocks the cell and enters. Queen. Now, Butch. Joe, watch yourself. It's not worth getting jerked to Jesus for. Butch. Nah, Canary. My respect for you has increased 200%. I never thought you'd have what it takes to step inside here. Jim. It's like what I was telling Ollie last night. We've all got walls around ourselves, Butch, that we can't see through. That's why we make so many mistakes about each other. Have a smoke? Butch. No, just say what you gotta say and then take a double powder. I don't want to lose control. Jim. I know what you got in mind. Butch. What? Jim. Hunger strike? Butch. What of it? Jim. I don't recommend it, Butch. Butch. Did Wayland tell you that? Did Wayland tell you to say that? Jim. No, this is on the level, Butch. Butch. Yeah, about as level as the Adirondacks. Jim. I'll admit I've made myself useful to him, but I haven't forgotten 2 weeks we spent in the hole together. And those visits he paid every morning to inquire about our health. He was even more solicitous about mine than yours, Butch. Things like that can make a common bond between men that nothing afterwards can never... Butch, come to the point. Jim. All right. I'm coming up for parole next month. Butch, rising. You are, huh? Jim. There's a chance I might get it. And if I do, I'm going to justify my reputation as a brilliant vocalist, Butch. I'm going to sing so loud and so high that the echo will knock these walls down. I know plenty from working in the office. I know all the pet graphs. I know all about the intimidation of employees and torture of convicts. I know about the hole, about the water cure, about the overcoat, about Klondike. And I know about the kind of food, or slop rather, that we've been eating. You wait a month, that's all. When I get through, Wayland will be where he belongs, in the psychopathic ward with Sailor Jack. And I promise you things will change in here. Look, here's an article about the Industrial Reformatory in Chillicothe. That's the kind of place this'll be. Butch, throwing the paper aside. I don't want no articles. Allison, you're full of shit. Joe, take it easy, Butch. To Jim. So you don't want us to go on hunger strike? Jim. No, it won't do any good. The boss will throw the bunch of you in Klondike. Do yourself a favor. Work with me. We can case this jug, but not if we keep on going opposite ways. Give me your hand on it, Butch. Butch, fuck you. Jim. It's no dice, huh? What do you say, Joe? Swifty. Butch. They say what I say. Now get out of here before I lose my last ounce of restriction. Jim. Okay. He goes out. Joe. Maybe he was on the level. Butch. He will be on the level when he's laid out straight underground. He slaps Swifty's rump. Get up. Supper time. Swifty, his face buried in the pillow. Leave me alone. I'm sick. I'm not hungry. Butch, you're coming along anyhow. We need you to help make some noise in case the kitchen boy was right about supper. Joe, noise? Butch, yep, plenty of noise. The bell rings in the hall. Butch, come along, yous. He shoves Queen and jerks Swifty to his feet. Hell's bells are ringing. Come on, boys, before them biscuits get cold. T-bone steaks for supper. Smothered in mushrooms. Come and get it. A whistle is heard and the lights dim out. Theme up. 1812 Overture. Fade. Blackout. Episode 9. Announcer. Hunger strike. Up on the office. Eva enters. Warden. Had your supper? Eva. Yes. Warden. Watching her as she crosses downstage. Hate to keep you overtime like this, but with the boys in Hall C kicking up such a rumpus, we've got to have all our books in perfect shape, just in case the professional snoopers get on our tails about something. Eva. Yes, sir. She removes the cover from the typewriter. Warden. Watching her closely. Hope working nights don't interfere too much with your social life. Eva, tiredly. I don't have any social life right now. Warden, how come? Eva, I've been so busy job hunting since I moved here that I haven't had much time to cultivate friends. Warden, no boyfriends, huh? Eva. Oh, I have a few that I correspond with. Warden. Yeah, but there's a limit to what can be put in an envelope, huh? Eva. I suppose there is. Mr. Whalen, there seemed to be quite a number of bad discrepancies in the commissary report. Warden. You mean it don't add up, right? Eva. I failed to account for about $600. The warden whistles. What shall I do about it? Warden. I'll get Jim to check it over with you. You know, a lot can be done about things like that by a little manipulation of figures. Jim will explain that to you. Eva. I see. Warden. How long have you been working here? Eva. 2 weeks. Warden. Generally, I get shut of a girl in less time than that if she don't measure up to the job. Eva, tensely. I hope that I've shown my efficiency. Warden. Aw, efficiency. I don't look for efficiency in my girls. Eva. What do you look for, Mr. Whalen? Warden. Personality. You're in a position where you got to meet the public. Big men politically come in this office. You give them a smile. They feel good. What do they care about the taxpayers' money? Those boobs that go around checking over accounts. Where did this nickel go? What's done with that dime? Jitney bums, I call him. No, sirree, I got no respect for a man that wants a job where he's got to make note of every red copper that happens to slip through his hands. Well, policy. That's what I'm after. Being political about certain matters that don't hurt ever, you see? Eva. Yes, I think so. Warden, pausing. What color's that blouse you got on? Eva, nervously sensing his approach. Chartreuse? Warden, half extending his hand. It's right, Frenchy looking. Eva. Thank you. She types rapidly. Warden, opening the inner door and coughing uncertainly. Look here. Eva. Yes? Warden. Why don't you drop that formality stuff? He crosses to her. How do I look to you? Unromantic? Not so much like one of the movie stars? Well, it might surprise you to know how well I go over with some of the girls. He seats himself on the corner of the desk. I had a date not so long ago. Girl works over at the Catalan grain market. About your age, build, everything. He licks his lips. When I got through loving her up, she says to me, do it again, Papa, do it again. He roars with laughter and slaps the desk. Why? Because she loved it. That's why. He rises and goes to the inner door. You ever been in here? Eva. No. Warden heartily. Come on in, I want to show you how nice I got it fixed up. Eva. No. Warden, why not? Eva, rising stiffly. You're married, Mr. Whalen. I'm not that kind of girl. Warden. Aw, that act's been off the stage for years. Eva. It's not an act, Mr. Whalen. Warden. No, neither was Uncle Tom's Cabin when little Eva goes up to heaven in Act 3 on a bunch of steel wires. He slams the inner door angrily, then laughs. You're okay, sister. You keep right on pitching in there. Eva. Now that you know me better, do I still have a job? Warden. Why, you bet your life you still got a job. He laughs and grips her in a fumbling embrace, which she rigidly endures. Jim enters. Jim. Excuse me. Warden, still laughing. Come on in, Jimmy boy. Want you to check over this commissary report with Miss Crane. She says there's a few, what do you call them? Discrepancies. You know how to fix that up. Jim, yes, sir. Warden, how's things in Hall C? Pretty quiet? Jim, too quiet. Warden, how's that? Jim, when they make a noise, you know what's going on. Warden, they're scared to let a peep out since I put that bunch in the hole. Jim, I don't think so. I got an idea they might quit eating tonight. Warden, quit eating? You mean hunger strike? The word scares him a little. Jim, yes, they're tired of spaghetti. Warden, maybe a change of climate would improve their appetites. Jim, Klondike? Warden, yeah. Jim, Klondike won't hold 3,500 men. Warden, it would hold Hall C. Jim, yes, but Butch is in Hall C. Warden, what of it? Jim, he's got a lot of influence with the men. Warden, he's a troublemaker, and I'm going to sweat it out of him. Jim, I wouldn't try that, boss. Hunger makes men pretty desperate, and if you torture them on top of that, there's no telling what might happen. Warden, hunger strikes something I won't put up with in here. Creates a sensation all over the country. Then what? Cranks of every description start bitching about this brutal treatment of these goddamn mugs that would knife their own mothers for the price of beer. Jim, the easiest way to avoid it would be to improve the food. Warden, avoid it, hell. I'll bust it to pieces. Wait till they see wait till they see that gang we've got in the hole. If that'll make sufficient impression, I'll give him the heat. He leaves the office. Jim, the man's a lunatic. Ask him who he is, he'd say Benito Mussolini. Eva, you're right about him. I suspected it last week when he made you show me those scars on your back. Just now, before you came in, he convinced me of it. Jim. What happened? Eva. He wanted me to go in that room with him. Jim. You didn't? Eva. No. I was sure he'd fire me, but he only laughed and squeezed my arm. Look. Jim. What? Eva. I've got a blue mark on my arm where he pinched me. Jim. When he was a boy, I bet he got lots of fun drowning kittens and pulling the wings off butterflies. Were you scared? Eva. Terribly scared. And at the same time, something else. Jim. What? Eva. If I told you, you'd be disgusted with me. Jim. Attracted? Eva. Yes. In a way. I knew that if he touched me, I wouldn't be able to move. Jim. In the pulps, they call it fascinated horror. Eva. Yes. Or a horrible fascination. Jim. So you're convinced it's no place for a lady? Eva. I'm not going to quit. Not yet. Jim. No? If you wait for a third alarm, it might be too late. Eva. I'm going to stay. I've got a favorite nightmare, Jim. About finding myself alone in a big empty house. And knowing that something or somebody was hidden behind one of the doors waiting to grab me. But instead of running out of the house, I always go searching through it, opening all of the closed doors. Even when I come to the last one, I don't stop, Jim. I open that one too. Jim. And what do you find? Eva. I don't know. I always wake up just then. Jim. So you're going to try the same thing here? Eva. Something like that. Jim. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. Give me the commissary report. No, take that sheet out. We'll start over again. See how much spaghetti we can make out of a Packard 6. 10 pounds of sodium fluoride. No, you better make it 16. Eva. 16 pounds of sodium fluoride. Jim. 16 pounds of sodium fluoride. Eva. You just gave me that. Jim. 20 bushels of... Eva. Jim. Yeah. Eva. Why don't you ever open the door you're hiding behind? Jim. What makes you think I'm hiding behind anything? Eva. Your eyes. The way your hand shakes sometimes. Jim. Oh, that. Eva. It would help to let go. I mean, with the right person. Jim. Who is that right person? Eva. Me. Jim. How do I know? Eva. Because I tell you. Jim. Lots of people tell lots of things, and most of them are lies. Eva. I'm not lying, Jim. I want you to trust me. Jim. Okay. Eva. Then tell me. What is it? Jim. What? Eva. Your hands. Why do they shake like this? Jim. I thought I gave you a clear demonstration once. Eva. When? Jim. That morning we heard the band music. Eva. You mean it's repression? Jim. That's it. Something that's locked up and keeps getting more and more all the time. There's lots of men in here with fingers that shake like this. It's power. Outside it runs dynamos, lights up big cities. But in here the power's all gone to waste. It just feeds on itself. Gets bigger. Does nothing. Till something sets it off like a match does a keg of powder, and then you've got an explosion. Eva. Explosions are such a waste of power. Jim. Yeah, but what's the alternative here? Eva. You're writing. Jim. Editorials for the Archaeopteryx? Eva, no, you've got next month to think of, Jim. Jim, next month is still on the lap of the gods, which is a complimentary way of referring to the Board of Pardons and Paroles. Eva, I don't know why, but I feel so sure of it, Jim. These 10 years of waiting, they've made you stronger than other men are. You've stored up so much in you that you've stored up so much in you that when you get it out, there's nothing could stand in your way. You'll push down all the ordinary walls and walk right over them, Jim. People will say, "Who is this man? Where did he come from?" And I'll smile proudly because I'll know. He's a man from another country, I'll say. He's a giant. He's got lightning in his right hand and thunder in his left. But I'll know. I'll know secrets about you. All the sweet, strange things that only a woman can know, and I can tell you. Waylon enters. How many pounds was that of sodium fluoride? Jim, 16. Warden, how are you getting along with that report? Jim, we haven't done much yet. We got to talking. Warden, about what? Jim, fireworks. Warden, very appropriate. Schultz is bringing the whole gang up for inspection. Get them chairs out of the way. Jim, yes, sir. Warden, you stand over by the window and look sharp. Eva, you want to stay in here or go in the next room? Eva, I'll stay. A buzzer sounds. Warden, okay, march him in. A file of haggard, ghostly figures shuffles into the room, their eyes blinking against the light, barely able to stand. Some with heads bloody, others with clotted, shredded shirts. The warden whistles. Schultz, stand up against the wall. Warden, nice looking bunch. Ought to make quite an impression when they go back to Hall C. To Swifty, how long you been in the hole, son? Swifty cannot speak. His lips move and he staggers forward with a pleading gesture. The warden raises the billy and continues. Stand back there. Why don't you speak? Jim, he can't talk. Warden, dumb? Eva, no, sick. He's had 5 days in a straitjacket. Warden, I think he needs 5 more. Swiftly falls to his knees. Jim, I think Swifty's had enough, boss. Warden, who asked you? Jim, nobody. Warden, just volunteer the information? Jim, yes, sir. Warden, maybe you'd like to take his place down there. Jim, no, sir. Warden, then you better cut the cackle. Ollie? Ollie, faintly. Yes, sir. Warden, you look kind of all in. Ollie, his voice shaking. I is, sir. I nearly checked out last night. Boss, and I didn't think I'd live to see day. Warden, think another night would just about fix you up. Ollie, couldn't make it, boss. Warden, what do you think, Schultz? Schultz, I think another night would do that boy a world of good, Mr. Whalen. Ollie wildly, please, God, boss, I can't make it. Warden, 2 nights. 1 extra for squawking. Ollie, oh, laws, a mercy, please, oh, Jesus, please, a mercy. He continues his prayer in a sort of chant as they are led out the door. Warden, get him out. I'll check him over again tomorrow morning. They shuffle out slowly, Ollie chanting his prayer. Jim follows. Ever heard such a squawk? Eva sinks wearily into a chair. You gonna flip out again? Eva, no, I'm all right. They looked so awful it made me a little sick. Warden, sure they looked awful. Maybe they'll appreciate good treatment after this. I'll wager there'll be no more kick about food. From the hall comes the sound of a disturbance. Jim enters. Warden, what's going on out there? Jim, Ollie just... Warden, took a dive? Jim, yes. Butted his head against the wall and broke it. Warden, head or wall? Jim, head. Warden, all right. Cart him over to the sick house. Jim, not the sick house. Warden, dead? Jim, yes. Warden, why don't you out? You could have prevented that. Give Eva one of them cards. Now out of the top drawer. Fill that out. Name. What's the smoke's name? Jim. Oliver. Oliver Jackson. Warden, special friend of yours? Jim. All of the men liked Ollie. Warden, huh? How old? Jim. 26. Warden. Color. Black. Sentence. Jim. 3 years. Warden. Charge. Jim. Slowly. Stole a crate of canned goods off of a truck to feed his family. Warden. Larceny. Cause of death? What's his Wasserman? Jim. Negative. Warden. Put this down, Eva. Stomach ulcers. Severe hemorrhages. Jim. That's what you gave the boy last week. Warden. Well, make it a bad cold. Complications. Pneumonia. The sounds of yammering begin to penetrate the office. The warden is unnerved for a moment, but continues. What's that? Jim. They're making a noise. Warden, instinctively seizing his whip. Where's it from? Hall C? Jim. Nah. Halls A, B, C, D, and F. Warden, shakily. What are they bitching about now? Jim. They must have heard about Ollie. They like him pretty good. Warden. He looks frightened. Schultz. He seizes the phone. Schultz. How's the pipes in Klondike? Get them radiators tested and ready for action. There is a sudden complete darkness on stage. Whispers. Gradually rising in volume and pitch. Somebody got hurt downstairs. Who was it? Ollie. Ollie? Yeah, they killed Ollie. Ollie's dead. They killed Ollie. Ollie's dead. They killed Ollie. They killed Ollie. Ollie's dead. A spot comes up on the cell. Butch is bending to the wall. He suddenly rises. Butch. Ollie's dead. They killed Ollie. He shouts through the bars. Chorus. Ollie's dead. They killed Ollie. Joe, what are we going to do about it? Butch. Quit eating. He shouts through the bars. Quit eating. Chorus. Quit eating. Quit eating. Blackout. Whispers. What does Butch say? Butch says quit eating. Hunger strike? Yeah, hunger strike. Butch says hunger strike. Hunger strike, quit eating. Quit eating, hunger strike. Voice. The men in Hall C have quit eating. Second voice. Hunger strike in Hall C. Newsboy. Morning Star. Paper. Morning Star, paper. Read about the big hunger strike. Woman's voice. It is reported that some of the men in the state prison have gone on a hunger strike. The click of a telegraph is heard. Voice. Associated Press Bulletin. Hunger strike at Monroe City Penitentiary. Men rebel against monotonous diet. Voice. United Press. Voice. Columbia Broadcasting System. Voice. Commissioners promise an investigation of alleged starvation in state penitentiary. Voice. Warden denies hunger strike. Voice. Hunger strike reported. Voice. Hunger strike denied. Voice. Hunger strike. Hunger strike. Traffic noises, sirens, bells are heard. Theme up. 1812 Overture. Theme reprise. Blackout. Fade. End of Act 1.